Welcome to the transition from an urgent problem to a solution. As you already know, I won't give you a shortcut or step-by-step instructions or some secret formula. One of the reasons is because you still have to walk your own particular path in your personal unknown. So you will need different types of solutions at different moments in time, and it is only you who knows the answer or how to choose the right answer at the right time for yourself. That is why I will show you the transition dynamic process so that you can pick up whatever idea you consider useful and to find your own solutions. So first I will give you a short description of the restaurant I worked in because all the examples in this class are based on this context, and I will get a lot in details. So the restaurant was a vegan one, and it produces and sells 100% vegan food, raw and cooked. The whole food is cooked every morning between 5 and 11 a.m. The cooking takes place in the main kitchen at the ground floor. The serving area is the first floor, where there is a second small kitchen for cleaning dishes and packing orders for deliveries. Food is packed and labeled in individual packages immediately after cooking, and it can be consumed right away. Basically, my daily activity is to serve clients in the restaurant, bring food from the main kitchen to the restaurant, to the first floor, take delivery orders on the phone, and clean dishes. We are two commercial workers. Each of us is working in the restaurant separately in different days with a 12-hour shift and 1 day off. So the restaurant is open 7 days per week. I'm doing the same job every single day, but the order of handling this small stuff is chaotic. There are no priorities and no procedures. The job is busy, overwhelming, and I run in all directions to handle as many tasks as possible. After work, I review my activity on a daily basis, trying to figure things out, to find out something in order to make improvements in the restaurant. But I don't know what I'm looking for and where to start. I also write in a daily journal different observations from the restaurant activity and my work. So first I will tell you the problem and the solution, and next I will walk you through the transition process of finding the problem and the solution. So first the problem. Eventually, after 2 weeks of working in the restaurant, I could identify a problem, one source for that feeling of chaos and confusing work. At lunch, I had to serve three types of clients at the same time, which meant I had three overlapping activities. There were clients in the restaurant, clients that buy to go, and clients that place delivery orders on the phone. And 75% of daily sales come from lunch. So it is overwhelming as I have to serve all three types of clients at once, and they get irritated and impatient as their time is limited since they eat in their lunch break from work. So immediately after I became aware of the three overlapping activities and clients, I decided that I have to find a solution for this problem. So the solution. I noticed that Sundays are days when the restaurant is empty, which means that I'm doing nothing for 12 hours. So I come up with the idea to change our working schedule, and we close on Sundays and reallocate the 12 hours of work during the week on my colleague's shift, and my colleague would do the same. So I work on my usual days for 12 hours, and I also go on my colleague's shift for 3 or 4 hours at lunch when three types of clients come at the same time. So we change our schedule from working one person per shift to two workers per shift. Now, it looks like a very simple solution, doesn't it? However, how are you going to solve the next problems in your business, like increase sales and profits with no additional cost, or cut losses and reduce urgent problems and all that stuff? because for every problem that you don't know how to solve, your mind will go back to that starting point of not knowing, of being foggy or blank, because every problem and situation is different and requires different solutions. So what is the next simple solution for each of these problems? Well, your mind goes blank, doesn't it? Because you don't know. And I'm not talking about improvised solutions, because probably you already manage well with these ones, but I'm talking about long-term solutions that last. That is why the answer is not straight. And you shouldn't get attached on solutions themselves, on techniques and formulas, but rely on the process of finding solutions every time you are in the position of not knowing, especially during a transition process. The answer comes in cycles, which is the process of identifying gradually a set of patterns. In this video, I show you the transition from this problem to its predictable solution, how your mind finds a solution when you don't know how to look for it, you don't have the experience, and you don't know what needs to be done. In the next videos, I will show you and walk you through another transition process between the problem and the solution from this video and the main cause and its long-term solution for most of the urgent problems in the restaurant. So let's get into the transition now. The interesting thing is that both the identification of the problem and finding the solution came apparently in a spontaneous way, just like urgent problems. So how come that you notice things around, that you see the right resource or information at the right time, at the right place for the right problem? Well, let's see. The transition had two parts: identifying the problem and finding the solution. First, identifying the problem with the three overlapping activities came spontaneously. This came as a result of my daily reviews, because I didn't know the three overlapping activities existed. I just perceived the situation as busy and running in all directions. The restaurant is crowded. I have difficulties in keeping up with all three types of clients, and they are getting impatient, irritated, because their time for lunch is limited since they're in their break from work. In addition, I also have to clean dishes and bring food from the kitchen to the restaurant. It is stressful, overwhelming. Clients are getting impatient, so I decided to find a solution. The first thing that came to my mind was to hire a part-time employee that would work every day, both with me and my colleague from the other shift. However, the challenge is that the restaurant cannot afford an additional employee, not even a part-time one. When you face a problem, urgent or not, and you don't find an immediate solution with your current and rational physical resources, what do you do? What do you do when you have conflicting realities? Well, the business owner jumped to the same conclusion that I did. It is not possible to have a second employee per shift because we cannot afford it. This is what happens when you solve problems individually. You look at a problem as a fact per se and try to find if there is a direct solution for it. If you can produce an immediate solution. If nothing practical comes to mind, then you give up and forget about it. However, unlike the business owner, I was not satisfied with this answer. So, finding the solution was the second part from this transition, which implied a conscious effort, and it didn't come straight. In addition, the solution came also spontaneously, apparently. So, now let's look at each of them closer, identifying the problem. The problem was about the existence of three overlapping activities. I was at the intersection of all three, so they were happening in my physical presence. They were happening all together, and they were permanently present, meaning they were taking place every day with no exception. So these two facts, that I was in the middle of their intersection and that they were taking place every day, made it easy for me to identify them, as they were happening all at the same time in the same space. So daily reviews were enough to identify them. My mind immediately caught the pattern even if I was not aware of it during my reviewing routine. Now, finding the solution. The solution to bring 2 workers per shift is not very obvious without hiring a new employee. This is because 2 reasons. First, it requires connecting 2 assets, resources that are both distant in time and in space, meaning the 2 commercial workers and inactive Sundays. They were not seen together all at once because, in general, we focus on our immediate surroundings, immediate problems and immediate solutions that we can see, touch, hear, and feel in our immediate presence so that we can produce immediate results. The second reason, because the mind already knew a standard solution, which was hiring a new employee. So, one solution is obvious, but the second option is missing from my perception of reality. Once a solution becomes obvious, we usually take action to do it. But if the execution of the obvious solution faces limitations, usually one doesn't take the time to think about it, as it is perceived a waste of time, or not that important, or finds something else, or jumps to conclusion that is not possible to be solved. Let's take the first reason. Why the solution to switch to 2 workers per shift is not immediately obvious. So it was about the required resources were both distant in time and space. So let's take first the distance in time. For the first resource, the 2 commercial workers, me and my colleague are working on separate shifts, not together, with 1 day at work and 1 day off. This means we don't meet with each other, so I don't see my colleague within my immediate sphere of action, and hence my mind doesn't perceive him as a potential resource. So there are interruptions in the activity at the perception level. We are doing the same job, are working in the same space, which is the restaurant, but the time frame is different in different days. This means there is a longer distance in time between my immediate attention, my logic, my knowledge, but what I think a solution should look like for example hiring an employee, and the actual resource, the solution, which is my colleague. So the 2 commercial workers that shape the solution are not anymore in the same day, as in the case of the 3 overlapping activities. They don't work at the same time. Now, the second resource that is distant in time. Sundays, the restaurant is almost empty. My immediate focus is on the problem from the crowded days when I want to improve the service flow, which is from Monday to Friday. Sunday is not a crowded day, so my logic immediately excludes it from the frame, from the space of the problem, or better said, it doesn't cross my mind to include it in the solving process. So Sundays repeat every 7th day of the week, but my immediate attention is focused on the 1st to the 5th day of the week. So the inactive day of Sundays is again not an obvious resource because it is not included in the time frame of the problem I was trying to solve, which is to improve the service flow during crowding days from Monday to Friday. Thus, finding the solution for the 3 overlapping activities at lunch is not an obvious thing. It took me some time because the 2 main assets, my colleague and Sundays, are both distance in time from my immediate field of work, and hence from my immediate attention, from what I consider to be logic, and that could bring an immediate solution. So this was the distance in time between resources. Let's see now the distance in space. Me and my colleague work separately in different days. Although we work in the same restaurant, which is the same space, we are not sleeping there. So I am at home when my colleague is working in the restaurant, and he is home when I am working. This means that the observer moves away from the space of the activity. So the distance in space refers to the movement of the observers, the employees, relatively to the same space we are working in, which is the restaurant. So being in action inside the restaurant, my perception is that my activities are separated because I have to move from one to the other in order to reduce the space among them and alter the state, meaning get things done. Serve clients, clean dishes, answer the phone for deliveries, and so on, which is another explanation for saying that I was running in all directions. The fact that I'm going home after work is an opportunity to look at the restaurant activity with detachment, to look at it from outside my own activity. This totally shifts the perception about the business. A different perception makes you take a different attitude and has different actions. So I change my position from the restaurant into another space of reflection at home, and hence there is no action, there is no space to reduce, and hence no time because I do nothing. The perception about your activities changes and will help you see the activities not separated but simultaneously happening at the same time and space, which is in your mind through the process of reflection and revision. This increases the probability to find more relevant solutions beyond what you consider to be immediately obvious. So, physically detachment from work cuts the time and space among activities, information, tasks, and one perceives them as simultaneously. This is the moment when your mind makes connections and solutions pop up. That is why I can see that Sundays and my colleague are resources for improving the flow of service in the restaurant, because I can see them in my mind simultaneously as the notion of time and space between them completely disappears. That is why sometimes solutions and ideas seem to pop up out of nowhere and spontaneously. During times of reflection, without doing nothing, the notion of time and space disappears, and your mind has room to process information that is already stored in your memory, to process all those individual facts that you know about in your business, and eventually make the connection among them. We will see by the end of the class that this is exactly the same process for finding the main cause of most of urgent problems. So now we can argue that Einstein's theory of relativity also applies in business because time and space are relative. This is because they happen in the observer's mind. If you see the resource in your business, you will solve your problem easier. If you don't see them, you will struggle. Well, this doesn't mean you'll go around asking yourself, how will I apply the relativity theory in my business? No, far from it. It is about becoming curious. That is why we look at 4 different patterns when time and space are relative. So relativity means that we perceive reality as real only in our physical presence, right here and right now. The moment we switch our position from one place to another or from one day to another, our immediate attention perceives another reality. You see only the facts that happen in this particular space at a certain moment in time. At the same time, you acknowledge that there is a connection among them that determines your business performance, even if you don't see it immediately, but you are willing and open to look for all these connections. You become curious about what clients say today, about your employees' opinion, and so on. The point is to become aware that you can find resources to solve problems, not only in your immediate time and space, in what seems to be realistic and pragmatic, in what seems to be closer to you, more reachable, but also in places, resources that apparently seem totally irrelevant and totally disconnected from important and urgent problems. For example, you should become aware that there is a connection between the kitchen production process and profitability, between the service method and efficiency, between clients' buying behavior and sales, and so on. So if you want to increase sales or profit or decrease cost, you will ask yourself, what do I have to see in my business that will help me solve this problem? And you will stay open to look everywhere in your business with no exception. That is why you should ask yourself this type of question, even if you don't see an immediate connection or answer. Even if resources are not physically together in the same time and space, they still influence the outcome altogether. They all influence sales, profits, costs, and your business efficiency in general. This means that improvised solutions, decisions that are taken in a split of a second based on the emergency and individuality of a problem, or based on some random observation or some perceived immediate result, are taken based only on what you consider to be practical and realistic right here and right now, which is in the immediate time and space of your business, and fails to include all areas of the business as a whole. This type of quick fixes exclude what is practical and realistic beyond right here and right now. So, being aware that your perception about business reality is relative, it will give you the trust that even if you don't see an immediate solution, you'll find it. If you just pay attention, if you allow yourself to be curious and proactively seek what needs to be found. This is possible if you take your time off and you review your daily activity. Everything that you have done and got in touch with during the day, random conversations with clients, I don't know, your furniture around, your routine, everything your mind can recall from that day. If you do this daily, your mind will keep recalling all these random images from your work that apparently they tell you nothing about solving problems, but that in time will be proven valuable as they will get integrated in a pattern. In addition, your memory is always fresh, as it will always recall details from 2 months ago, for example, that normally you would reject. Keeping a fresh memory with information from the past will help you to identify more patterns in your business. So, we can say that the theory of relativity is the proven scientific formula that curiosity is not just a thing for children, but actually it is a necessity for solving adults' problems. This is what means to think outside the box. How about that? And we will see throughout the class how curiosity will uncover the main cause for most urgent problems by looking at different patterns that represent different combinations of time and space, which is about different relative perception of the business. Okay, so that's it for now. See you in the next video with more information about overlapping activities, which is our first pattern to discuss. Bye.